Our final segment for today is our panel discussion, and I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Jenny Melia, who's the manager of the HPSU team at Enterprise Ireland, by Barry Brennan, angel investor, and he's the managing director of CAP F9 Ventures, and Richard Watson, who's the principal of Dublin BIC Ventures, which is the new Dublin BIC seed fund launched at the back end of last year. So you're all very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And Richard, if I could come to you, maybe kick off. It's a big year for you. Your fund has gone live. Maybe tell us a little bit about you and the fund, and what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's a good year. We launched our new fund just at the end of last year. Got to our first close of 23 million, and our target is to get the fund up to 30 million plus. So it's a unique fund in the sense that we raised it from over a dozen tech entrepreneurs, business leaders, family offices, alongside our cornerstone investor, Enterprise Ireland. It is, in fact, our fourth fund, believe it or not, Dublin BIC. Previously, we managed the AIB seed fund. We actually launched our first fund in the 90s. But it's a fund to invest in companies, Irish companies, from seed to Series A stage, really along that continuum. And we're quite broad in terms of sectoral focus. So really business-to-business software companies covering a very wide range of sectors and medical devices. And overall, the market at the moment, we've seen, bounce back quite a bit over the last couple of months. There's obviously certain sectors that are finding it tough, obviously the likes of travel and hospitality. But we're seeing a really good deal flow. And since the start of the pandemic, believe it or not, we've had over 100 new inquiries come in and met with virtually all of the companies. So it's great to be out in the market. We're actively doing deals. We completed our first couple of deals there. Our first deal recently, and just about to close another one. And we're actively engaging and seeking to meet with interesting early stage companies.
Very good. And what are you seeing in the market, Richard? Is it, you're probably different. You're a new fund, so therefore you're coming in with your powder dry, as they say. How are you assessing the market in terms of investment at the moment?
I mean, we do take a long-term view. We're different than many other funds in the sense that we have a clean canvas. So we haven't had to spend, much of the last 6 months like many of the VC funds that are kind of midway through their cycle, looking at their portfolio companies and helping to top up companies that need bridge funding, through difficult trading conditions. But in terms of the market, we are taking a longer term view. We're investing in companies over the long term to form close partnerships and hopefully get exit within 4 or 5 years. So really, whilst current conditions are difficult at the moment, in particular sectors, really, we kind of look at 2 time horizons. We kind of focus in on what a company can achieve over the next 12 to 18 months with investment. If it's a seed stage company, coming in with maybe the low tens and monthly recurring revenue, will this round give the company enough runway? And, do they have a compelling sales and marketing plan to get to potentially 1 million ARR within that time frame? And then we're looking obviously in the longer term towards when our investee companies could be exiting. So we're looking at the market, what will the company look like in 3 to 5 years' time? Do we believe these companies can get to 10 million plus ARR within that time frame, which is often the kind of, the threshold to get to for a SaaS company where you become an acquisition target. So we are being mindful in the short term in certain sectors, but we are, one of the 2 deals we're doing at the moment is in a sector that has been affected, but we can see that, business has opened up considerably over the last 2 months. They do have a good pipeline, and we believe they'll be able to get sufficient traction to position them, all going well for a Series A round in 18 months' time. And by then, hopefully, we should be through the majority of all of this pandemic, and the economy will be in a better state.
Very good. Thank you for that, Richard. Jenny, I'm going to try and come back to you, and hopefully we can pick you up now. Your connection seems to be better. How are you, Jenny?
I'm fine, Connor. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly now, Jenny. Great to have you with us. So it's been a crazy year so far. What's happening from the Enterprise Ireland perspective in terms of of the supports and the work that you've been doing to drive that support into the ecosystem?
Okay, so I suppose in the context of new companies, new startups, Connor, the investment pipeline held up till July-ish, and then we did start to see some softening. And what we agreed we would do is, where we had good projects, we'd be prepared to go in a little bit earlier, or if a small funding gap had arisen, we'd be prepared to go in with a little bit more funding. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Our follow-on pipeline is very strong. We're ahead of where we were last year. And look, based on the conversation so far, that's not going to be a surprise to anyone. And of course, then in the background, we've been operating all of the additional funds through the Sustaining Enterprise Fund.
We were talking about earlier on about the strategic plans that you're developing for the HPSU division. What are the key focus areas? What are you looking for?
So if I look at the three key parts to our HPSU strategy, Connor, part one is around building a strong and diverse promoter and founding team pipeline. Part two is about finding more disruptive tech challenger projects, both from R&I and outside R&I. And then the third and very important part as well is building a really, really strong ecosystem around our founding teams. What are we looking for at the moment? We cast a wide net. So we are basically looking for, what we've discussed already across this call. We're looking for repeatable, scalable business models that can scale internationally. I guess, in terms of the post-COVID environment, in terms of how people are working differently and living differently, we are seeing and we are looking for projects that can support what excited. Very interested in clean tech and green tech projects as part of our plan to transition to low. We would have built that into our recent competitive start fund call, and interested as well. I heard reference to AgTech earlier. We are certainly very interested in AgTech, and I think you have to look at things like the innovation arena in the national ploughing. If you look at the success of our established companies in the international market in this space, there's certainly, we believe a lot of potential to grow really strong projects in the AgTech space.
Fantastic. Female entrepreneurship has been and remains a significant focus, Jenny?
Absolutely, Connor. So back in 2012, we were at 7% female founder HPSUs, and we're now in and around 21-22%. And you guys work for us as well on our Innovate program, which we use to support our female founders that come through the competitive start fund. But no, another strong year this year, and a good pipeline next year, including female founders as well, linked to R&I projects in the third level universities.
Sorry, can you mute yourself there, Catherine? We seem to be having all sorts of issues on our panel call this morning. We've had the break in connections, we've had the dial-ins, we are having the classic Zoom call here. Barry, I'm going to come back to you, and hopefully you're back again. Thanks, Jenny. Barry, you were just telling us about your investment process, and you were trying to talk to us on that. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Connor? Can you hear me?
So I think I can hear you, Barry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, look, I think in terms of the climate, I was mentioning I from a macro perspective here, I think the fact, everything that's going on around COVID, it's clearly terrible in terms of the human cost. And I think what in the short term for angels, certainly that's probably resulted in some of the angel investments pulling back. And I think the timing of that can be different. And it's interesting hearing from Jenny around where Enterprise Ireland saw the pipeline falling, because I think a lot of the angel community would have paused between, I'd say, March and maybe September. So I do think there is a kind of a lost 6 months of this year at that seed level. I think COVID also just slows down the deal process. the chance to meet founders, to sit in a room, and there are investments being done where founders are not meeting investors, but just the logistics take longer. I also look at COVID on the flip side in terms of as an opportunity there, because I guess it's clearly increased digitization or digitalization of businesses. And I think for a sector that I would be active in, which is the technology sector, that is positive. And while I guess Zoom can be frustrating, and we've seen a little bit of that today, I do think it's made the world a smaller place. So I'm getting to connect the companies and investors in the US. And I think as an island, I think we should be able to leverage that. And we see that in Silicon Valley companies relocating in the US. And I think that is an opportunity. I think on the ground locally, again, and I'm not just saying it because Jenny is on the line, without the likes of the local enterprise offices, Enterprise Ireland, Dublin BIC, HBAN, the accelerators, Intertrade Ireland, I think we'd be really struggling. And I think they have stepped in. It's not all good news from a government perspective. I think the EIS regime still needs work. I think that has slowed down investments, and I think that is having a negative impact. So I think from the angel and the seed side, some slowing down, but I do think there are a lot of tailwinds in a positive way. I think there's some very interesting things happening at Series A, what's happening with Devon, what's happening with Pointy. There's been a lot of big transactions this year, and I think that's very positive. And as going to what Richard said, this is about building up for the long term, and we're hoping that COVID will be a significant blip, but a blip all the same, and that hopefully the angel side will be back on track more into next year.
Fantastic. Thanks, Barry. I love that piece that the world is getting a little bit smaller, notwithstanding our technical difficulties of connecting. That's a lovely piece. Richard, can I come across to you? We've got entrepreneurs on the call here with us this afternoon who want to know, about your investment process. So how does the investment process work for a new seed fund such as the one that you have? And before you go to that, if people have comments or questions or that they want to submit, please get them in and I'll try and get them in front of the panel. Over to you, Richard.
Yeah, no, thanks, Conor. I mean, I suppose firstly I'd like to say, we are an entrepreneur-friendly fund. We're very approachable. I mean, I started out my career actually working in startups in Sweden and pitched to a number of venture capitalists when I was there and managed to put one of them to sleep. So. But in terms of our own fund, we're unbureaucratic. We're very approachable. If somebody wants to, contact us, they can come directly. We get referrals through Dublin BIC clients, through network contacts, through Enterprise Ireland. So it's informal. Just reach out to us and send us a deck and some supporting material. We try to be very responsive and generally meet new companies within about 10 days. If it isn't a fit for the fund, could be the sector or the stage is just not a fit. We're quick to kind of point that out rather than, wasting time. So a slow no is always the worst. But when things are going well, we have follow-up meetings with companies, get to know the management team better. It's important that companies have their house in order in terms of, having supporting information, good financial models. They're all the things, financial models, pipelines. We do some customer calls. So it's really, an iterative process, and hopefully, getting to a point where, we proceed to invest. It has been challenging through COVID for a wide range of reasons, but we're open for business. We're actively doing deals. And if you haven't been in contact and you're a startup that's sort of at the HPSU stage or even a bit further on, please do get in contact.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jenny, I'm going to come back to you, and I see a question coming up here in front of me, and it's around construction tech and prop tech. And have you seen much activity in those areas? And the experience from the questioner says that one of the upsides of COVID is that it's accelerated the move towards digital in industries that maybe had been traditionally slow to embrace technology. So I suppose it's a two-parter, one around construction tech and prop tech. Are you seeing anything there? And secondly, have you seen anything from industries that are embracing the move to digital that had been slow previously?
Yeah, so look, I guess we always had construction and tech projects in our portfolios, and we have development advisors assigned to work with each of these sectors. And one of the advantages in enterprise is that because we're working with clients at all stages, they're scaling. We're also working with the large companies and the large SMEs who have developed an international presence. So, we're getting real-time market insights from our colleagues overseas and real-time sectoral insights from these companies then, and from the development advisors who are working with them. I think one of the earliest ones we've seen in the context of COVID and technologies, speeding up in the context of digitalization, was very much around healthcare. And I've talked to clients now in the last couple of months, who, would be of the view that COVID, for all of the terrible things that's coming through with COVID, one of the upsides that they have seen is it's basically after speeding up their business, by the guts of 3 to 5 years in terms of their roadmap. And actually their challenge now is finding the growth funding they need now to accelerate the business and make the most of this opportunity. But look, I think we're going to see it in the context of how we're all working remotely, and Barry referred to that as well. Certainly in construction, I think even in terms of, what we're actually seeing in terms of it moving into, the likes of ag tech and so on, and into supply chain management. And of course, we also now have Brexit coming fast down the tracks as well in the next couple of weeks. So like I say, we are casting a wide net in terms of projects, and people who are at an early stage, what I'd say to them is, come in and talk to us in Enterprise Ireland. If you're at a very early stage, we will signpost you to the most appropriate supports, and including your own team, Connor, in DBIC. And we work closely, I know, with you guys on building out the projects at an early stage.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jenny. Barry, I'm going to come to you, and then Richard, I have a follow-on from somebody here, and they're broadly the same question. But Barry, I suppose, how do I get you involved in my business, and what are you looking for, whether that be sector or stage of company? How do I find you? How do I get you involved? How do I get you interested?
Yeah, look, LinkedIn is probably the best way to contact me, or through my website. For, I guess, a comment I've been thinking about, when people describe different angel investors, and the question of what an ideal investment is, and also how hard it is for companies to continue to get rejected. And I think what I would say is there's probably an investor out there, but one of the challenges for you as a company is to try and understand, I guess, what boxes those investors tick. The reality is that an investment can look very good to one investor and look not so good at all to another investor. And that's going to the drivers of value for that individual investor. Some investors have capital, some have run out of capital, some are coming into capital. And the other little tip there is always keep a good database of the investors you've kept in touch with. Keep them updated, even if they haven't asked you to be updated as well, in a polite way, and because circumstances can change and your business can change. But I'm conscious that it's 58 days to Christmas, and this will sound like a shopping list, but what I would look for is a great and passionate team that demonstrates integrity and good engagement with the investors in the process. You're looking to build a large international business. You're tackling a large problem, or what would be a large total addressable market. Ideally, you want to have unique technology, and that would be a sector I would be active in, or a market insight into an application of a technology. One factor for me that is increasingly important is the ability to be able to sell what you've built. So it can all be fine and well that you've built a great product, but you really need to understand how to sell it and where you're selling it to. I think showing traction and improvement and over time is really critical as well. So if I meet somebody, and I think there were comments earlier from Devon about meeting VCs 4 years ago and keeping those updated. That often happens. So keep the investors updated. And if we see traction, that's also really positive, because it shows that you're delivering against the objectives you set. And then I guess more broadly, that competitive landscape you are looking to act in also would be important for the lens that I would operate in. So I tend not to do anything in the consumer landscape. And that's nothing against consumer businesses. It's just I don't really understand them. They typically require a lot of money, and they require a lot of, I guess, investment in building a brand. And that's A, expensive, and B, it's not something I bring a huge insight to. But as I said at the beginning, I think the hardest job for companies is to find the investor. Serendipity can play a role. So have a great elevator pitch explaining your business value. And if you meet somebody in a hotel lift, you meet anyone in a social event, fire it out, because I've seen these things happen. People meeting a random individual who knows somebody, and that's how you build networks and connect. The other thing, HBAN, DBIC, the likes of what Richard are doing, there are certainly other ways to access investors or referrals, but certainly HBAN will be an active network of angels, and that will be a good place to go to as well to test your proposition.
Thanks, Barry. Super insights. I'm coming to the end of my time. Richard, I'm going to come back to you. I do want to pick up a point that Barry just said there around B2B and B2C. How do you feel about backing a B2C business as opposed to B2B? And do you have any areas of concern around that?
Well, I mean, look, I'll be honest. Our strategy is primarily B2B. We have invested, over the years in quite a few B2C companies, more B2B. I mean, our focus is B2B. If you're a B2C company, as Barry alluded to there, you're building a brand. Companies could burn through a lot of cash on marketing and building the brand, and require a lot of money to get that critical mass of consumers. So if you are a B2C, we want to see something clever in terms of strategic partnerships, or kind of collaborating maybe with another brand that you can piggyback on and get some momentum. But often the unit economics are pretty tough for B2C businesses, just in terms of the cost of acquiring customers versus the lifetime value of a customer. So our focus is B2B companies and medical devices as well. And really, I mean, I've covered the sectors and the stages and everything, but I mean, it goes without saying, first and foremost, the thing we look at really is a really good, solid team, a resilient, as Michael mentioned, management team with good complementarity. We want to see companies with good balance of commercial and technical. We do see a lot of startups coming here with, great commercial people with domain knowledge, which is something we really look for in market insights and networks. But sometimes companies just choose to outsource all of their R&D and plan to internalize it beyond raising a seed round. So I know I'm digressing from the question a bit, but I suppose that's just a message that if you are at the pre-seed stage, look at bringing on, and you don't have a tech co-founder, look at bringing on a tech co-founder sooner rather than later. But look, we're fairly broad in terms of sectors. It's all about, is the business model scalable, in terms of the lifetime value versus acquiring customers.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Jenny, I'm going to come to you for the last word, if I may. And there's a question around, how do I become an Enterprise Ireland client? What are you looking for in startups, and what's the process for kind of getting to talk to you?
Okay, so the best way I think to come into us in that kind of an open question scenario, Conor, is to come through our HPSU customer service desk, our HPSU inquiries desk. So clients typically, I guess, come into us either through the competitive start fund, either they're successful, or perhaps they've missed the cut, but they have an interesting project that needs more work, or they come to the Leos very often, or they come to us through New Frontiers. And then of course we have introductions as well from entrepreneurs and so on who know of these projects and are making us aware of them. I guess just to build on what the guys are saying there, when I'm looking at projects, I'm looking to see, who's involved in the project, not just in the founding team, but in terms of their strategic advisors. Are they working with and listening to, and the listening piece is very important, listening to people who, have been on this journey before them, maybe have some scaling experience, have scaled in the international markets. And I'm also looking as well then in terms of their focus on execution. So, if they have a plan in play, where did they expect to be at this stage? What were the milestones they were putting forward, and where are they now in terms of achieving those milestones? And what I call smart money versus money. Not all checks are equal. So, if you are bringing investment, like I say, you're bringing a lot of strategic experience. Well, that certainly would be something that we'd be looking at in Enterprise Ireland.
Fantastic. Jenny, Richard and Barry, thank you for your time this morning.